What on earth are we to do? This is what David was addressing so long ago, and this is what we are seeing played out before our very eyes in this very hour. The Bible is more up to date than tomorrow's newspaper, that the Bible speaks to the issues of the day. It speaks to the issues of every day and every generation, and it speaks to us directly today. The people around David panicked, and they urged David to flee to some place to hide until the dust can settle. It was a time of national crisis, and that it threatened to overturn the very stability of the nation. And this upheaval is caused by evil men who sought to do great harm to others and to literally overthrow the whole peace of the nation. David begins with an emphatic declaration of his trust in God in the midst of this cataclysmic upheaval that is going on all around him. David is not putting his trust in men. He is not trusting himself. His trust is not in chariots or horses. It is not in silver or gold. It is not in allies or even his own government, but it is in God and God alone. Men will always fail us. Governments will always fail us. We will always fail ourselves. There is only one sure anchor for the soul, and that is in God Himself. The society at this time was filled with godless and ungodly people, and one godless man encourages 10 other godless men who encourage 100 other godless men to rise up together. And to bend the bow is a picture of taking arms, to take up physical arms in order to inflict great violence. They threaten human life, and they are desiring to create such a disruption that they will turn society upside down. They are armed, they are dangerous, they are on the prowl, they are on the move together against innocent, law-abiding people. They are ready to attack innocent people and then to shoot in darkness. What courage they draw when the sun goes down, where their identity is hidden, when they cannot be seen. David begins by declaring that God reigns. It is not the evil that reigns. It's not the devil that reigns. It is God who is the ultimate sovereign upon His throne. In the Lord I take refuge. And the word for Lord here is Yahweh or Jehovah. It is that name for God that stresses the fact that He is self-sufficient within Himself, that God has no needs that need to be met, that God supports everything outside of Himself, and God is in no need of anyone or anything to meet needs inside of Himself.
Hey everyone, I'm Mark Ryan. I'll just cut in right there. That talks about the doctrine of God's aseity. God has no needs that needs to be met outside of Himself. You know, and that'd be a good place for me to break in and say, hey, God doesn't need Donald Trump or the Republican Party in order to save this nation. And if you watched the debate yesterday, it was so frustrating. Frustration on steroids. How many people watched the debate? If you didn't, congratulations, because you're the real winner when it comes down to it. But that's a little bit what we'll be zooming in on today, is the presidential debate and kind of the split, the reform split that's been going on really behind the scenes. The reform resurgence started, where was it, 2000, 2010, right in that era. And since then, it's split. It split over the woke stuff, and then it split again, and now it just keeps fracturing over and over again. Uh, but if you missed the debate, don't worry. That's why I'm here to fill you in. And of course, what catches my attention, some of the things that no one would even think about. Uh, Kamala Harris, if I remember right, they had requested for the debate to be more informal, like sitting down. Well, why? Because Trump's a giant. I don't know exactly how tall he is, 6'4" or so, maybe. I don't know. And Kamala Harris is really short. And when you're debating, you don't want the optics of someone being really tall next to someone really short. The tall person just psychologically, I guess you could say, wins. Well, when you watch the debate, they had the split screen and they had Trump, this tall, and Kamala just as tall as Trump, if not a bit taller. And that's the kind of stuff that I noticed. And so there would have had it been either Kamala Harris is like standing on a stool, or they're editing it so that they're just even height. It's so stuff like that grabs my attention. The debate starts, and on Polymarket, was a bet on, hey, are they going to shake hands? That's what people were thinking. And it was about 90%. No, they're not going to shake hands. And 10%, yes, they are going to shake hands. Well, Kamala Harris kind of crowded his podium, his stage, and went to shake his hand. Coming across as more friendly, more amicable, that kind of thing. And so that, hey, that surprised me, and I was thinking there's no way that they'll shake hands, but hey, I was wrong there too. Seems like I'm wrong most of the time. And how does the debate start off? Kamala Harris shares her plan. Her first words out of her mouth were about her plan. And then you get to the corruption. Corruption is something that disqualifies a person as a leader. If someone's corrupt, they're not fit to govern a state, a nation, or be a sheriff, that kind of thing. And she starts out, hey, with all this free money stuff. And Trump does the same thing as well. Hey, if you want to open a new business, I'm going to give you $50,000 of free money to do that. Well, that's corruption. And, as a nation, we need to get back to just calling things as it is and catching these things. Hey, if you vote for me, I'm going to pay off all your student loans. That's corruption. Hey, if you vote for, I'm going to increase the child tax credit. That's corruption as well. Hey, you vote for me, I'm going to give you stuff. Essentially, that is corruption. At the end of the day, when there's a dollar sign attached to what you're getting in return. But instead of calling that out, Trump will go on stage and say, hey, if you vote for me, I'm going to give you free IVF. Now, why would Trump do that? Because Trump is pro-abortion. Hey, Kamala Harris is much more pro-abortion. Trump is pro-abortion too. And we talked about last time, Trump's first time running, he ran with courting the support of evangelicals. And this election cycle, he's thrown them under the bus. He's betrayed all of the things that he said in 2016. At one moment in 2016, he said that abortion should basically be a crime. And then he backtracked that as fast as he possibly could. But he got some support for that because no politician, mainstream one, would ever say something like that, ever say something as godly as that, is what we should say. And so those are all the things that, just jump out. And Trump saying, hey, the government or your insurance, we're going to force them to pay for IVF. That is a radical leftist position that it has the potential to kill tens of millions of like frozen embryos. Um, and it's just crazy. And if you listen to abolitionists, they blew a gasket when Trump said that. They blew all their gaskets. I don't know how many gaskets you can blow, but they're all blown. But then your Christian nationalists who they rally very hard behind Trump, they kind of just brush it off. Yeah, we wish that he wouldn't say stuff like that, but Kamala's just so much worse. And he's doing his best. He's trying to win votes. And so he's just got to do that kind of stuff to get elected. Um, and so you can see, if you've tuned in a few times, even where I think this Christian nationalist uh, movement is headed. Not in a good direction, that's for sure. And that's part of the reform split. You have a reform split going on between abolitionists who would say, hey, we need to abolish all abortion today, immediately, today. And that is their position. And I think that's a good position. And hopefully we get a debate between I won't even go into that right now, but between those who are incrementalists and who would almost even reject abolitionism, and between, good abolitionists. If you talk to an abolitionist, what is their biggest opposition? It's the pro-life movement. You can't get bills into legislature that say basically, hey, it ought to be, or it is a crime to have an abortion immediately starting today. Who will reject those bills and not even give them the time of day? The pro-life movement. They won't. They're their biggest obstacle to it, which is just very shocking. And Christians ought to think about that for sure. So there's just so many thoughts. What's your thoughts about the debate in the in the chat section? Who won the debate? In Polymarket, Trump was up by 6 or 7 points that same day, and his odds of winning went, at one moment it was 50% Kamala Harris, 49% Donald Trump. So he lost a 6 or 7 point lead off of Polymarket. Predicted is another odds based thing, and his odds there crashed as well by several points, probably 6 points or so. And then there's a third more popular market. Trump lost there too. And everyone, go to the coffee shop and you have your more conservative men there just chatting about stuff. And they're saying how, hey, Trump did not do well in that debate. And I've never been a fan of tribalism, of folks who could watch that debate and say, Trump won. Trump just really took it to the other side. That does not seem. I believe she came in strong. She came in very strong. If that's the only time that you'd ever seen Kamala Harris and Donald Trump just talking to each other, and that's the only thing that you knew about them, man, it would be very hard for anyone who's more moderate or dependent or just an unbeliever who doesn't have a Christian worldview. It'd be very hard for them to say, yeah, Trump just walked away with it. And we always have to put these asterisks in there. And I'm not a fan of, and I'm not in favor of her. Yeah, that's for sure as well. Her father was a Marxist. Well, America has been dumbed down so much. How many Americans would care that Kamala is a Marxist and her father's a Marxist? Very few. That's the poll that I want, especially with the younger generation, as well. I think she knew beforehand what the questions were going to be. Do I think that she knew beforehand? She spent 5 days preparing, and she was a DA beforehand. And so it's so weird because Republicans tend to, what's the word I'm looking for? Underestimate their political opponents when it comes to these things. Hey, Donald Trump, he'll just defeat Joe Biden so much. Well, last election cycle, Joe Biden he did okay. He did not perform as well as Kamala Harris did, that's for sure. But he did fine. This last time, obviously, Joe Biden crashed and burned. We all saw it live on TV. And, I've always said, I think it was a very big mistake for Trump to have that debate with Joe Biden before the DNC, before the Democrat National Convention. He should have waited for him to get that nomination first. And to be fair, though, Democrats would have thrown him under the bus before that debate happened anyways. But yeah, that was a giant headache to watch. You have Kamala Harris coming out with the corruption on how hey, we're going to build 3 million new houses. You want a new house? Well, we're going to give it to you. And we're going to give you $25,000. I don't know if she said that in the debate, to buy you, to get you a new house if it's your first house. That's more corruption going on. And that's why part of God's standard is, if you're going to be a leader, you cannot be corrupt. And Christians ought to stand up and say, hey, we see corruption here, 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 and here with Kamala, with Trump. Hey, both of you are not qualified to be leaders. Why? Because the corruption, because you do not fear God, because you're both pro-abortion. That is what Christians ought to do. But with this tribalism that goes on, oftentimes what you'll see amongst believers right now, I'm just talking about believers, hey, Kamala Harris is the worst, and we can't say anything negative about Donald Trump. That is one thing that will just get my blood pressure just higher like nothing else. Besides all the Democrat stuff as well. And we could talk about this debate all day long. Hey, we might. We could bring it up and listen to it. I don't want to. It was traumatic enough watching it the first time. And as you're watching it, you should be thinking, hey, America's toast. This nation is toast. And what others mean for evil, God means for good. But we're going to see the judgment of God and the wrath of God poured out on America. Hey, it's being poured out right now today, but it's going to be even greater in the years to come. Just book it. One of my concerns is that in Montana right now, there is an abortion, what would you call it? Abortion ballot on the, to vote on. And that is on Polymarket, that has a 90+% chance of passing in Montana. I know Montana. I think Montanans will vote for abortion in Montana. There was a heartbeat bill that the governor signed that restricts it more. And now Montanans are probably going to vote to eliminate a lot of those restrictions and to enshrine it, if I had to guess, in the state constitution or within the state laws. And so that's what we're battling in Montana. And once that happens, you're going to see the wrath of, you cannot vote to shed innocent blood in a state and God just, close his eyes and be blind to it. You're inviting the wrath of God really in Montana here very shortly, when I think Montana will vote for abortion on that. And so we're going to see some problems, some reaping and sowing, which is one form of God's judgment very shortly in Montana. And we're going to see it across the United States as well. We have that one beats. Wait, how was Donald Harris Marxist? No, Kamala Harris is Marxist. How is she Marxist? I mean, Karl Marx would be the founder of Marxism, the father of it. And under part of Marxism, what do you see all the time? You don't belong as an individual. You're categorized into groups. And so, hey, there's the rich, there's the poor, there's men, there's women, there's white people, and there's people of color. And you're either an oppressor or oppressed. And so all these white, rich men what do? They put in laws that oppress the poor, that oppress women, that oppress other folks. And so there's this identity politics going on with Marxism, where you pit people against each other, and that coalition is very strong. Uh, you, it is just amazing how fast and rapidly America's changing. It's changing so fast. And one of my favorite shirts from Apologia Studios, and I actually got it from them, would be Moses, not Marx. And when you look at the nation and look at the young people, they are moving away from Moses towards Marx in droves, just in absolute droves. And what's going to happen over that? Well, they're just running towards judgment and destruction and calamity. Uh, and it's a good thing that our older generations who had more of a biblical worldview, hey, they're going to enjoy more peace and prosperity. Whereas this younger generations that are just running towards Karl Marx as fast as they can, they're running towards judgment and destruction and really slavery as fast as they can. And so, hey, personally, I think both sides are bad and the American people are being played. Yeah. And so, one of the questions that we should have is that, Donald Trump saving America. Is Donald Trump part of the, I wouldn't call it the deep state, but is he how separated from the corruption and the establishment? How separate from that is he? I don't think he's that separated from it, to be honest. Kamala Harris is worse, much worse, that's for sure. But that's my thought on it. Doesn't really matter who gets in, prophecy will be fulfilled. Yeah, God will fulfill his purposes no matter who is in the White House. And I keep saying it. Republicans have a 33% chance right now of capturing the Senate, the House, and the presidency. If Donald Trump would have crushed that debate, hey, I would probably say a 60% chance of taking all those things. But his odds went down during that debate for sure. But Democrats have it's about a 20% chance of taking the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And so if you can breathe a sigh of relief today, your sigh of relief would be that Democrats will not own, the House, the Senate, and the presidency in 2025. We can all sigh there. Now, why would I say that, seriously? If they did, that would be the worst case scenario for this nation. How so? They passed the Equality Act in a heartbeat. It'd probably take them 2 days. Exaggerating a little bit there. And what is the Equality Act? Then it's open season on anyone with a biblical worldview who wants to live by and abide by that worldview. Your Christian colleges and Christian universities, they will either have to capitulate to the Equality Act and to Democrats' godless worldview, or they'll have to reject it. And if they reject it, they will be sued into financial bankruptcy. Just book it. And the way that the mainstream media is right now and how charged everything is, hey, Trump's a threat to democracy. That just charges everything way, way up. And then where do you go from there? Well, it's not just Trump, it's his supporters, not all of them, just the MAGA ones, the extreme ones. And those who, fight on the agenda item, they will be labeled that, and they'll be even worse than Trump. They'll be right on par with Trump. And, we have this coming right here. Wait, how was Donald Harris Marxist? Well, Kamala Harris, with Marxism as well, you need someone who is worse than the devil. You portray him that way to run against, that just rallies everyone and energizes everyone to get behind. And Donald Trump, is very good at rallying all these Marxists together to go about their cause. He's very good at it. And when Donald Trump isn't around, when he was off of X, when he was just, we had 4 years, really 3 years with him, just not in the headlines. Everyone, not everyone, but the mainstream media had forgotten about him. But now that he's there, and Elon as well, they are energized and they are going full force at it. And if you listen to them as well, part of what they run around saying is that hate speech is not free speech. And so if Democrats win the House and Senate presidency, you're going to see free speech just obliterated overnight, and book that one for sure. Donald Harris is Kamala Harris's father. Oh, there we go. Yeah, Donald J. Harris. That's right. Because it's ironic because Donald J. Harris, I believe Donald Harris's father's name, middle initials J. Donald J. Harris is Kamala's father. Speak your truth, but he's my half uncle. Outside child from my grandfather. That's the rumor in my family. Speak your truth, but he's my half uncle. Outside child from my grandfather. That's okay. Yeah. And that one beats. I fully believe that, yes, Kamala Harris's father is Marxist, for sure. And, I don't agree with Marxism at all at the end of the day as well. What else to say? This might actually be a short live stream because that's about as far as it got. There's a reform split that's going on really between kind of your theonomists, I guess, between abolitionists and your Christian nationalists. And your Christian nationalists are saying, essentially, we need to get behind Donald Trump. Don't you be saying these bad things about Trump. If you do that, he's not going to get elected. And Joel Webben had a comment toward Pastor Joel Webben of Right Response Ministries towards an abolitionist of, hey, you're criticizing Donald Trump. You're saying you're not going to vote for him because he is pro-abortion, which he is, and he's corrupt as well. But hey, think of your ministry. People are going to leave your ministry in droves if you don't support throw your support behind Donald Trump. That's essentially what Joel Webben was saying. Kind of sound like the mafia or something, to be honest. And I just thought that was so, so bad. We'll keep it low key today, right? But one of the greatest flaws with Christian nationalism that I see out there is, hey, we need to bring about this Christian nation. We got to do it because, and there's almost you can also hear them criticize the phrase, hey, just preach the gospel. When people say just preach the gospel, they'll say it as almost a pejorative. Just preach the gospel. The Christian nationalists. Why? Because we need to do so much more than that. We need to reclaim this nation for Christianity and for Christ. And so we have to do all these various things. And so that is one of the departures, I think, from solid biblical Christianity that Christian nationalism makes at the end of the day. Their trust, is it in the gospel or is it in this Christian nationalism thing? But then beyond that, Christian nationalism, hey, if you're going to reclaim the government and bring about all these Christian things, well, then how are you going to do it? Well, you're not going to do it with Kamala Harris. That's for sure. And so how do Christian nationalists go about, hey, Donald Trump, we're going to do it with Donald Trump. Now, that makes zero sense for me. That's mind-boggling to me. Why? Because Donald Trump does not fear God. You can see that in that he's pro-abortion past 6 weeks. It really, honestly, it just depends on the moment too. One moment, hey, he's got one standard on abortion. It just changes every day if you listen to his sound clips. But Christian nationalists rallying behind carnal men who don't fear God as their rallying cry to bring about a Christian nation, that's a recipe for disaster, an absolute recipe for disaster. It lacks discernment, it lacks biblical fidelity as well. It, with them, the tent is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'll listen to, I don't know if the guy's a Christian nationalist, but hey, in the future, it's Vivek Ramaswamy running against the Democrat. Let's say that happens. Well, Vivek is Hindu. It's very ironic. Are you going to see these Christian nationalists rallying behind someone who is Hindu in order to bring about a Christian nation? The discernment just is not there. And if you go read the statement on Christian nationalism, you should go do it sometime. I should post it in here or something. But most Christians would read through and say, yeah, I agree with that, this, and that. But there's a lot of things that aren't in there that should be in there. Hey, what's your stance on rallying behind Vivek Ramaswamy? What's your stance on rallying behind Donald J. Trump to bring about these things? Is that a wise thing to do, or is that a foolish thing to do? It's a very foolish thing at the end of the day. On the thumbnail, I had the old quote from John Calvin: when God wants to judge a nation, he gives them wicked leaders. And that's what we see today. I can say that quote, and with a lot of conservatives, or Christians even, yeah, you're right. That's why we've got Joe Biden. That's why we have Kamala Harris. It's the judgment of God. And that's so right. Hey, throw Donald Trump in there too. Yeah, absolutely throw Donald Trump in there too. Kamala Harris would be the judgment of God through the Democrat Party. Donald Trump is the judgment of God as well through the Republican Party. And they're, one is not as bad as the other. Kamala Harris is worse. Yeah, that's true for sure. But neither of them are good compared to God's standard. So I'm going to throw in a link if anyone wants to jump in. We had Rick Caldwell jumped in yesterday, and we talked for probably 30 minutes or so, maybe an hour or 40 minutes. And then he had to take off. And we were, kind of getting somewhere, and you have to rehash a lot of things that probably other people have already talked about since I've been on vacation for so long. We'll throw this one in at Eric. They're both bad, but I believe that if we want to stay a country, Donald Trump isn't it. Trump did not answer one question last night. That one beats. Hey, you should jump on the chat, and we could have a really good chat. It doesn't have to be professional. This channel's not professional, right? Just pop on your phone, and we can have a really good chat. And to be honest, though, that one beats. Neither of them answered really any questions. The first question, someone was telling me about it today. The first question was asked to Kamala Harris was about inflation or something like that. And Kamala Harris just went, hey, my plan is, and didn't answer the question at all. If you listen to it, neither of them did. And honestly, nowadays you're trained not to answer the question directly. Why? Because it makes you look bad. And so you just answer the question that you wanted them to ask you. And that's what they train you to do in, speech and debate. But if you had a real debate going on, which we don't have anymore in this nation, with our politicians, at least, maybe Christians do from time to time. But we just don't have any of those like they used to, like what the Lincoln Douglas debates, whatever those were, as well. But the split though between Christian nationalists and the abolitionists, I find very intriguing. And there's a YouTube channel, and he's on X as well, Abolitionist Rising, who I listened to him talk about slavery just the other day. And he was talking about, I think, 13 million slaves who were brought over from Africa. And they knew that about 10% of the slaves brought over on the ships would die during the journey. And so you've got a chunk of them who are jumping overboard. You have a chunk, and then you actually have sharks following the ships so they can be fed. And then you have a chunk of them that die of disease, basically. And so, but 13 million brought over from the slave trade. And then he showed an image, I should bring it up, but you would have your slave seller, your slave buyer on the auction block, your slaves as well. You had your abolitionists, who were very, very few abolitionists as a percentages, maybe 1, 2, or 3%, if that. And then you have your slave tolerators, and the vast, vast majority of people were slave tolerators. And then beyond that, though, what's the Christian position on that whole entire thing, where you have man stealing going on? And he was talking about William Lloyd Garrison, who talks about who is basically telling slave masters and those who support slavery, hey, you need to repent. You need to do immediate, complete abolition, which would be, not only do you emancipate the slaves, but you grant them equal rights as fellow human beings as well. But he would call the slave masters, and folks, he would call them man stealers. We have man stealing going along. And a lot of people, I guess President John Quincy Adams came out and said, hey, you got to stop calling it man stealing, because in the Bible, the penalty for man stealing is death. And so you got to stop doing that, William. But what would be the biblical position, back in the 1800s and 1700s on slavery? Would it be just because there were also gradual abolitionists? Hey, we should get rid of slavery. It's going to take 1,000 years to do it, or 100 years, or 10 years, and it's surprising, because if I read the exchange correctly, John Harris, it seems like, is arguing for gradual abolition, which I found pretty shocking. Why? Because I think the biblical view will be immediate abolition, both today, where we stand with abortion, and 200 years ago with slavery. Hey, in other words, partial obedience to God, that's disobedience. Delayed obedience to God, whether it's with slavery, with abortion, or whatever, that's disobedience as well. And you had a lot of arguments against immediate abolitionism. One that is often cited is, hey, if you were to emancipate the slaves today, they'd all die. Who's going to take care of them? Who's going to feed them? And so people will always come up with excuses to not obey God, essentially. Oh, there we go. We do have someone who wants to jump on today. So there we go. Hey, Dwayne, what's up?
Hello. How you doing?
Oh, I'm pretty good.
I can't be long. Yeah, I'm sorry. All of a sudden the reception started reception is bad, but I can't be long because I got to get ready for work and stuff. But I wanted to hear what you have to say. Like, what's up?
Yeah, did you have anything, particularly that you were interested in talking about, or?
All right, give me a second, because I don't know why I can't hear anything you're saying right now.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me better now?
I can hear you
Or
fine. Yeah.
do I sound messed up?
No, you sound good.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. All right. Um. Okay. So say something.
See, what grabbed your attention? What are you thinking about right now?
Well, I guess the part where you said, I guess she was reading something about Kamala Harris's father was a Marxist. I was just wondering what that's about. Because you know, I haven't really heard anybody say anything much about his, beliefs and stuff,
Hmm.
or his position, and
Yeah, well, maybe
that's pretty much.
and that's pretty broad without, going and sitting down, reading through different things that he wrote. Because apparently there's a book on it, I think, from what I heard. But there's a biblical worldview, and then there's a Marxist worldview, and the two are not compatible. And so when Christians hear that someone's a Marxist, what they're essentially saying is this person is at war with God and at war with God's law, and the two are in conflict. Does that make sense? Or
Makes sense. I mean, yeah, it makes sense. But all right. Do you think Donald Trump is a Marxist?
do I think that he's a Marxist? And how I just generally define Marxism would be, um, one component of it really would be that you identify everyone as groups and not by individuals. And so you have the rich who oppress the poor. This would get into Marxism, communism. They put in um, they put in laws
Yeah.
to protect their wealth and oppress the poor. And so they would teach the poor needs to rise up and overthrow the rich and to overthrow the oppression that's going on. Um, and so, a lot of people hear that and say, Amen. Hey, the rich, they're very corrupt. Are they corrupt? Yeah, they are so corrupt. They do so many corrupt things that we probably haven't even heard of. Um, but is the
All
solution
right.
a good solution that they propose? Is the question.
All right. Can I drop out real quick and come back in? Because I don't know why the reception is so bad all of a sudden.
Okay, yeah, I'll be fine.
Um, all right. Give me a second.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, so I'll let you take care of that, and then we'll keep going from there. But people listening to the debate, was anyone really encouraged about the future of America? I don't think so. I listened to it and my hey, America's toast. Go get ready, go buy that emergency food supply kit and all that because hey, you might need it. uh it was also fun to laugh at with the dogs thing. If you've been on X or you've been on social media, you see a picture of Trump with a duck in one arm and a cat in one arm, and he's saving the ducks against everyone. Um, that's been pretty funny. But that's what, this nation is coming to right now. But Dwayne, can you still hear me by chance or?
Give me a second. I can't hear one word you're saying.
Okay. Um, Oh, there we go. He dropped off. I will post the link again if anyone wants to jump on. Do you know what? I think way back in the day when I was a teenager, I read a book and it was called Seven Men Who Rule the World from the Grave. Karl Marx is on there. He has so much influence today. I think William Keynes was on there, who was an economist. Um, Charles Darwin was on there. There's folks who have such an influence on us today that have long passed us by as well. But yeah, if any, there we go.
Oh, right. I can hear you better now.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Okay, okay. Yeah,
But
because I guess I was using the app, the StreamYard app,
hmm
and you know, couldn't hear anything. All right, so all right, I know you answered the question about if Trump was a Marxist, but I didn't quite hear everything you were saying. Yeah.
okay, well, yeah. So my concern with Marxism is that under Marxism, people are not identified as individuals. Just get rid of that because that doesn't exist under Marxist thought. Instead, everyone is identified as groups. Hey, you're white, or you're straight, or you're a man, or you're rich. If that makes sense. And beyond that, not only is everyone identified as a group, you're either an oppressor or someone who's oppressed. And so under Marxism, the rich oppress the poor, men oppress women, white people oppress people of color. And you can just go on and on and on. They do it over and over with every category that you can think of. And so what happens under Marxism is you create all this division that's going on. You will have very powerful leaders rise up, like under communism. Uh, Marxism and communism would go hand in hand, as well as socialism.
Right.
Um, so you'll see strong leaders start to arise, um, and all that too, as well as the fruit of Marxism, and communism is a lot of dead people. Uh, and so that's what people are concerned about when they say that, someone's a Marxist. So
Right, but what you described there to me sounded like Trump and the MAGA movement.
yeah, and so it's I would say it's a bad thing when believers or when people adopt that as well, because you can hear it on both sides.
Right. I do hear it on both sides, but I'm just saying, like, if you're gonna call Kamala Harris, which I understand why people would say she's a Marxist. Um uh yeah, but yeah, if you're gonna call her a Marxist, you gotta say Trump is a Marxist also, because you know, I mean, the truth is, out of the both of them, he's blatantly doing things that show, that he's leaning towards being a dictator. If you was to compare him to Kamala Harris, th- does that make sense?
That so there's a quote from Trump. He said, if he's elected president, he'll be a dictator from day one.
Right.
Yep. And so what you see right now today, as America is headed towards Marxism, that's the route that we're taking. And
Right.
so Kamala Harris would be very, hey, let's just run towards Marxism as fast as we possibly can. Donald Trump would be more like, hey, let's just, sprint there, powder walk there.
I
Um,
don't know about that. Because the thing is,
Mhm.
like, Trump, well, he called for people to subvert an election. He didn't want to leave the White House when it was time for him to leave. So I can't think of one Democrat that ever done that. I can't think of one Republican that ever done that before. So now that he attempted to do something, it didn't work out, and then he put more people in place, or certain people in place that would allow him to get away with it the next time. He might possibly do it the next time and succeed.
Well, we could think about Trump calling the governor of Georgia, what, 4 years ago, right? And what did he say to the governor there? I need, is it 10,000 votes, or how many votes did he need?
Right, it was something like that. um I can't remember if it was like 10,001 or
Or
like
uh,
something like that.
something like that. And so you can see that um, Trump is corrupt as well. Hey, Kamala is corrupt, and Trump is corrupt as well. It's two bad options that we have to pick from.
I
Is what.
agree.
Mhm.
I agree. But I think, all right, what I think, um, all right, this is what I think about the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Because right now, I'm independent. I've been an independent for like a few years now.
Mhm.
So basically, what the Republican Party seems to be afraid of is the transgenderism, and also they don't like I guess some of the policies, as far as like um tax the rich, and you know what's the other thing, they don't want the rich to, the Republicans don't want the rich to pay more money. They basically want you know the lower class people, or middle class people, to take most of the burden when it comes to taxes and stuff like that. And also abortion is one of the top things as well. um you know Obviously, the Democrats, they feel like everybody should have equal rights, everybody should be free, like nobody should be able to tell you know someone what they could do with their body. That's like one of the main things that they're promoting. um I don't agree with either side, right?
So, Dwayne, when it comes to abortion, what do you believe about abortion by chance?
When it comes to abortion,
Mhm.
honestly, I feel like, um how can I say this? Um I don't agree with abortion. Like, I would never marry someone or date someone that has aborted a baby. If like, that's just my take on it, cuz I would never ask a woman to abort a baby or anything like that. Um, my thing is,
And why is that by chance?
well, because of my Christian beliefs, pretty much. But at the same time, I know that we live in a country that predominantly isn't Christian, like when I grew up, they used to always say America is a Christian country and all that type of stuff. Like under, I guess, like around the Bush era, I would hear that. Maybe around the Clinton era, I would hear that. But then, the older I got, I realized that it's not a Christian country.
And what makes you say that by chance? What kind of changed your mind there?
Well, okay. One thing is when you look at the history of the country, um, you know, a lot of things like, for example, slavery. That's not Christian. Um, uh, mm, what's the other things? All right, let's say with the founding fathers, right? There are
Mhm.
certain writings that the founding fathers wrote, which they were leaning more towards like like they didn't believe in the same God Christians believe, if um if that makes sense. Like they were more like I guess they had more of a universalist approach. Like they like um meaning like they wanted people to be able to worship whatever God that they you know
Mhm.
that they choose, like they
So
that's,
it sounds like, there's a lot of Christians or conservatives out there today who would say that the founding fathers were predominantly and mostly in the founding of the nation was very mostly by Christians. Um, and then there's others who would say, maybe it was 50-50, maybe it's way less than that. Um, you would tend to think that less than half of American, founding fathers and everything were believers then.
um yeah, I would say that, yeah, less than half or maybe half. I don't think they were all um believers. And to be honest, you know I mean, I don't know. I would have to, take a look at history, again, like as far as do a refresher. But uh a lot of the founding fathers weren't, you know, as good as some of the history books portray them. You know what I mean? Like you know, I feel like there's two different types of history from what I learned. Because you have like the history books that let's say if you was to pick up one of those Britannica or um what do they call it,
Pretend encyclopedias or
yeah, like encyclopedia. If you was to pick up an encyclopedia or go to like like a high school and stuff like that, and you read the history and stuff that's in there, you would think, oh, okay, these people are great guys. You know, they had it all planned out. This is what they did, and it was, to make it good for everybody, kind of thing. But then, when you look into like the collegiate history, like, um, it tends to like go into more detail.
Hmm.
Like, or for example, one thing I could think of off the top of my head is like because I remember in like growing up in school, um they would talk about the um let's say Thanksgiving, you know, and let's say they, I know Thanksgiving. I don't have a problem with Thanksgiving, but when they had Thanksgiving, it was pretty much a plan, right? So meaning like they had the feast with the Indians and stuff like that, but then afterwards, what do they do? Then they give the Indian, like the Native Americans, like smallpox, like blankets with smallpox box on it, and it basically killed, like, I don't know if it was half the population of Indian.
Yeah, there's 13 colonies, and at times I think that was done on purpose. I
Right.
wouldn't relate that to Thanksgiving, but
But I thought that's
yeah.
when they gave it to them, like after the Thanksgiving feast. But
Mhm. And so if they knew, hey, we're gonna give these blankets and it has smallpox and it's gonna kill them, it's gonna make them sick. If they knew that, under God's law, that wouldn't be okay. If they didn't know it, that'd be another thing, though. Is that fair?
okay, but I think they knew it
They,
because
they probably did. I don't know a whole lot about that era. Uh,
okay,
I do know that as time progressed, I think they did it. They did some other thing. They did so much was done during this era,
right.
and as Christians, we believe that everyone are sinners, and so the Native Americans are sinners, the colonists are sinners, and
I agree.
people everywhere sin, and they're really good at it, and that's why we all need Christ. But if I had to redirect the conversation, as we're looking forward with this nation, what's the biggest concern that you have for this nation? What's the uh, biggest thing going on?
Um, hmm. All right. That's a hard question because I don't have any children, so um I guess one of the things that I would be concerned about really is the way that they're promoting, like the LGBTQ agenda and all that type of stuff. That's one of the things I don't like. Um, but because I don't have any children, you know, that doesn't really affect me, right? Um, but let's say um, another thing would be like the economy and um, the future for the country. You know, like what's gonna happen 5 years from now, 8 years from now. Like, are we gonna be in another recession? Are we gonna, be able to, um, well, with me, am I gonna be able to afford a house? You know, that's what I'm concerned with. Uh, Another thing too is, you know, um, I honestly would wish that, some of the Republicans would pass some type of universal health care or something like that because almost every country in the world has it except for America, which I don't understand that. And I guess the excuse that I hear a lot is, oh, we're gonna go to the doctor, hospital, and we're gonna have to wait 3 months to see a doctor and all that type of stuff. But I don't think that's true, because it might be like that at the beginning at first, but eventually I think it would like ease up and like
Mhm.
level
Well,
out.
let me challenge you that, and Dwayne, I'm about as limited government as it gets. I think the government ought to punish evildoers, and then commend people who do good, um, and then also protect their nation from invaders. If there's another country that wants to harm them, a nation, a government has a job, a duty to protect the innocent. But where I get concerned is where a government basically says, "Hey, we're going to be like God, and we're going to provide for all your needs. Don't worry about any of it, because we're going to provide for you." Uh, and so what you'll find is that when a nation says, "Hey, we're going to take care of your health care, we're going to pay for your college, we're gonna buy you a house, we're going to make 3 million houses and give you 50,000 bucks for a house, we're going to give you 50,000 bucks for business," um, that government is becoming more and more powerful, uh, and you'll find that it's going to become more and more corrupt and more authoritarian. Um, does that make sense?
That makes sense, but I would say, all right, my thing is it doesn't have. I don't need, or I don't think the government needs to have control of everything. Um, you know, but I guess the main thing would be like the things that, um how can I say, I can't even say the things that we need in order to survive. Like I feel like there are certain things that that would benefit everyone, like healthcare, that would benefit a lot of people. But uh does the government need to buy our houses, or um pay for our student loans and stuff like that? I don't think so. But to be honest, I guess free money is good money to me.
It
So
Well, when you have free money, hey, there's talk of universal basic income, where the government sends you a check, takes care of all your needs, as well, or you know, $2,000 worth of your needs every month, or things like that.
well, I
Mhm.
don't believe that. I mean, that is kind of that would be stupid if they did that, because I do agree that you know that it would make a lot of lazy people out there. People would quit their jobs just to collect money if they go that route. But you know, how can I say? Um, there is a scripture that says something about every man should work, or something like that. And,
Mhm.
and
If a man will not work, he should not eat.
right, right. So I agree with that more. So, but then again, there are some who cannot work, and it could be because of medical issue, or they could be handicapped or whatever else.
Mhm.
So, you know, those type of people should have a way to survive.
And so if a person will not work, they shouldn't eat, but if they can't work because of a disability or things like that, then it is who should ideally take care of them? Should it be the government? Oh, hey, we'll just let the government do it. Or should it be Christians and people of society that go and take care of them?
Um, that's a good question. I know that um, I believe that God will hold us, responsible for taking care of people that, um, I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking that people that's close to us, like, or just, as Christians, God is gonna, he basically tells us to, you know, feed the poor, pray for the sick. I know those are
Mhm.
that's the job of a Christian, but, you know, for the government to do it, um, I'm not sure if it's wrong for the government to provide that kind of service.
Well, Dwayne, my belief on that is that when people or Christians say, "Hey, I'm not going to feed the poor or take care of the poor, we'll just let the government do it." That's abdicating our duty and just passing it off to the government. And so over time, what you'll see is the government wants more and more money to feed the poor and take care of the poor. Um, and it costs more and more money to do that as well. Um, and there's a lot of waste that goes on it as well. But God will judge believers and people who are just apathetic and say, "Hey, I don't need to take care of the poor. The government does it. I don't need to give them food. The government gives them food stamps." Because that's shifted to the government to do. A lot of people um, refuse to help others. Does that make sense?
Right, I agree with that. I agree with that. Um, you know, what can I say? Uh, I don't know. Even in certain churches or cultures, I would say that when a homeless asks for money or whatever it is, some people don't even want to help them. Even if that person is like Christian, they would say, "Oh no, I'm not giving them any money because they're gonna take it and buy some booze with it or whatever else." So, you know, I think that's wrong. Yeah, I think we should, as Christians, we should, help others that need help. And then, if they take our money and do something else with it, that's on them. They're gonna have to answer to God about that. But we should, you know, do what we're told to do, right?
Mhm. So, Dwayne, do you think that America today is headed in the right direction or the wrong direction?
I think it's heading in the wrong direction. But uh to be honest, I think that the only way America could head in the right direction is by, how can I say? I know Biden always talks about bipartisan support. So I know that, both sides have good ideas. Um, you know, the problem is, um, each side has, you know, contradicting ideas or ideas that just, you know, it just doesn't make sense to me. Um,
Well, I tend to think that your Republican Party today was your Democrat Party 14 years ago or so, because they're slowly embracing, um, things that Democrats have embraced 14 years ago.
well, actually, in 1968, when you had I believe it was the Dixiecrats. There were Democrats, I believe, and there were Dixiecrats as well.
Mhm.
And I believe the Republican Party, I guess they did a switch. I think that's what they said, like in the history
Oh,
books. There-
uh, I
Like
got
some,
you. Because so historically, Abraham Lincoln is credited with the Emancipation Proclamation freeing the slaves, and they voted radically for Republicans for a long time until you say about 1968. Then,
yeah, I think it was around that time, 1968.
it,
And
Mhm.
most of the Democrats went over to the Republican side, but I guess those were the Democrats that did not want to, you know, I guess they didn't want to give slave or, African Americans rights. So they went over to the other side, and that's how the Republican Party, got the way they are today.
Mhm.
But obviously over time, you know, well, I can't say that the Republican Party was always conservative. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I do know that at some point the Democratic Party was also conservative a little bit, or well, there were a few conservatives in the Democratic Party as well. But what's happening today is just way different. But but I don't know. I'm just talking. That's just from my point of view,
Mhm.
But I can't stay. I gotta get ready for work.
Oh, you got to get ready for work. Well, can I
Yeah,
say real quick, what is the biggest issue that in politics today? I think the biggest issue is that neither Trump nor Kamala Harris fears God.
I agree.
And so I think either one of them will lead this country uh, down bad paths to, that will cause more chaos in this country. Is that fair?
It's fair, but from my point of view, all right. I'll say this. You have Trump. Trump is a very well. Trump used to be Democrat, by the way.
Mhm. Yep.
So he's a recent convert.
Wait, you used to be, he still is a Democrat.
Oh, so you still think he is? Okay,
I
there you go. So
Yeah.
you have a Democratic Republican that's leading a bunch of other Republicans, and to be honest, I don't know how. Like, it's so weird, like how he makes his decisions because he's not educated, in my opinion. He's not educated. He does not he doesn't even want to learn anything, in my opinion. So, like, basically, he puts people into office just from by the way they look. If they're handsome or if they're pretty, he signs them up. And then,
Well, I might disagree a little bit there. He'll put people into office. Hey, if you say really nice things about Donald Trump, hey, we'll put you in office. But if you criticize him for anything, no, you know,
Well,
you're dead
well,
to him. Yeah.
well, that's true too. But his Republican, his vice president said some negative things about him, and he still, you know, got put into office. And what's funny about that is the other day I was watching a press conference or some type of rally with him speaking, and this guy stopped in the middle of his speech just to fix his hair or something. Like who does that?
Did that happen? Yeah. So, narcissism would be a word that fits for Donald Trump. And as I watch his campaign and everything, I think I can see how the narcissism is affecting his campaign and, the country at large, um, his his campaign at large, I should say. But I do want to redirect the conversation because I think the fear of God is probably the number one issue. Neither candidates fear God, so they're going to lead down this country down the road to chaos. But then number two is abortion, and I believe that abortion is murder. And so if a candidate supports abortion, which is murder, that God is not happy with that candidate. And beyond that, that candidate should not take communion. That the church that they go to should not serve them communion. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but all right, I want to make one final point before I go because I'm really running late. Um, so basically, what I believe is, I mean, I honestly would love it if America was a Christian country and America adopted a lot of the Christian values and stuff like that. But I know that we cannot force our Christian values on a wicked society. You know, my thing is, I think the best thing to do is to, for the government to be equally fair with all, with everyone, give everybody something. That way, we don't have some type of rebellion or some type of pushback because a certain group that didn't get what they wanted.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
That that makes sense to degree because I mean America's becoming more and more divided. Anyone that you know looks on social media can see how it's a lot more divided. There's people talking about America having a civil war within 10 years or within so many years. Um, and so, I think if there's any hope, it would be repentance, national repentance, people calling out to God and crying out to God and asking God to forgive them. And yet, when you read scripture, I think that the the only or the most likely thing that would bring that about would be um, judgment and
Right.
God's wrath falling upon people.
Exactly. Because I mean, my thing is, there's not going to be a revival. I don't believe that one day everybody's just going to wake up and say, okay, we're going to start serving God yet, unless of this, God, you know, does something to cause them to do it. There's nothing that the government could do to cause, or force everyone to be Christian or to, you know, stop sinning or aborting babies or whatever it is. So, even if was to elect Kamala Harris and then, you know, maybe that would cause God to, you know, send his judgment. Who knows? But like,
Well,
um,
I mean, it really concerns me. I was saying it because in Montana, Montanans are voting on an abortion on the ballot here very soon, and they'll probably pass it. But that's asking for the wrath of God. In Scripture, it'll talk about Israel building high places and sacrificing their children, and that invited the wrath of God upon them. Um, and then there were good kings who reformed that and who took those high places and destroyed them essentially, and said, we're not going to do that anymore. Look at the death and destruction that it brought upon Israel. Um, and
Right.
so, you know, can God, because God is righteous and holy, can God ignore, um, you know, abortion, the 60 million abortions now that America has on its hands, uh,
Well,
as, as well as the sexual immorality just parading everywhere down the streets now? Yeah.
right, right. But now the thing is, I can't. I won't say that God has done that in the past, because abortion was legal for a while. But I would say that the truth that
Are you there?
did not have certain rights, people would still do it anyway, and it might be worse because they're going to be doing it in a less humane way, and that's going to cause more deaths. So that was the whole purpose of having abortion rights in the first place. But I have to go. I gotta go to work.
I Dwayne, thanks for coming on and chatting. It's, a good chat. I would
Yes, I agree.
Yep, I would really push back on what you said before in that, hey, we could argue the same thing with slavery. Hey, there's more slaves today than there were back then. And so if you're consistent with that argument, why ban slavery? It's just going to be different, uh, hey, they could be abused even more unless we regulate it. Uh, and so slavery ought to be a crime, and abortion ought to be a crime in both instances. But yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
nope. I mean, I'll say keep slavery a crime. I would say that, but you know, um,
do you believe that abortion ought to be a crime?
abortion
Mhm.
should it be a crime? Well, I believe that if they kept it the way it was before, I think it would be fine. Like, I mean, meaning like I think abortion is fine if it's gonna cause death to either the baby or to the mother. That's the only time I'm for abortion. But
Should
I'm
it be?
not a woman, so
Yep.
I mean,
Is abortion murder? Let's ask
I
that.
I think it is,
Mhm.
but
And
um,
should it be, if abortion is murder, should it be a crime for a mother to murder her child?
um, yeah, I wouldn't go that far because it would depend on
Is
certain things.
are the
Because
are the unborn just as human as a 1-year-old, a 5-year-old, or a 10-year-old?
yes,
Should it be a crime for a mother to murder a 10-year-old?
yes,
Should it be a crime for a mother to murder her unborn child?
sure, but
Mhm.
why are they doing it? Is it, well, like I said, if the mother, I know there's certain things out there where if the mother was to go full term, she might not survive the pregnancy, or sometimes the baby might not survive the pregnancy. So, in that case, you know, they should make it legal somehow, because, nobody could help that, you know.
So, Dwayne, am I going to make you late for work? Do you need to get
Yes,
going?
you are.
You
I
can
gotta
get
go.
you can get going for work. I mean, we could talk about that all day long.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'll let you get going though.
All right, thank you. It's nice talking to you, Mark.
Yep, it was good chatting with you.
All right.
Mhm. And so to respond to that though, too, I mean, I've heard Jeff Durbin talk about it. I've heard lots of people talk about it. Is there any occasion where the mother's life is, in jeopardy, and if you don't have an abortion, the mother will die? I wouldn't frame it that way. Um, there are times where both lives are in jeopardy. You do everything that you can to save both lives. Is that an abortion? I don't even like the word abortion. Is it murder? If you're trying to save both lives, is it murder? And that, honestly, I wish that people would stop using the word abortion and just say murder. Is there times where you need to go murder a child to save the mother? No, you never need to murder anyone to save the mother. You never need to do that. No one ever needs to do that. You try to save both lives. There are times where you can't. It's like if two people are dangling off the edge of the cliff, and you can only save one of them, you go save the life that you can. And usually that's the mother's life. And the other person isn't able to make it, that's not murder. That's not an abortion per se. And so I think that people can frame everything the wrong way. Then the medical industry or the doctors of the world have failed to research and further search means and ways to save both lives. Yeah, and so caller is not trustworthy in my opinion. I guess the channel's growing and it's reaching more people who don't have the same worldview, I would say, especially on abortion and politics. And we should have gotten to the gospel as well. But again, I'm going to one more time post a link. And if anyone wants to talk about the election, the state of the nation, anything really, it's an open mic right now. And I didn't really have a lot of thoughts formed for the discussion today. I kind of just jotted them down last minute. But again, anyone watching that debate last night, no one should walk away thinking, oh man, I'm so glad I can sleep safe and sound tonight. And this country is just going in the right direction now. No matter what, it's not going in the right direction. Just book that, no matter what. Just from a peace and stability kind of perspective. But at the end of the day, the Lord Jesus Christ is ruling and reigning, and he is actively governing over America today. And if we could jump into the counsel of God, and we can't because we're just humans and we're not as bright as God is, we're not as powerful as God is, we're and that's a good thing. But what is God going to do? Hey, we know the character of God. Why? Because he reveals his character to us. And he reveals that, hey, he's patient. Praise God for his patience. He's been very patient with this nation for not 300 years, 200 plus years, right? Hey, are we almost 250 years old now? We're almost 250. Whoa. Personal opinion, and from a nation that from the 70s had promoted abortion and population control. During the 70s and 80s, the government enforced families to not have more than 2 children, or else penalties or threats. Yeah. Um, and so we don't think about that in America so much. And in China, again, there's the one child policy, and that created a lot of problems over there. I've talked about that a bit on the channel before. But God's righteous and holy, and as he sees what's going on in America with 60 million unborn Americans murdered through abortion, and with the sexual immorality that's going on in America, God will not turn a blind eye to what's going on in this nation. And people have been doomsdaying stuff for a long time, and just have that economic apocalypse, and the world's gonna go to hell, so to speak. This nation will be. That I almost think people have become numb to it a lot. And what will it take? At what moment will we say, hey, America, this was the day that America collapsed? It hasn't happened yet, I don't think. Um, there's some really big dates in our nation's history. Hey, when prayer was taken out of schools, the Bible, abortion, Obergefell, these kind of things. Maybe COVID could rise to that list. Maybe going off the gold standard. There's different days that we point to that really contribute to the snowballing destruction of this nation. And to clarify, not from China, but the nation has a predominant crypto communist mindset. That's really interesting to clarify that. But the nation has a predominant Chinese crypto communist mindset. And so I always call you Pizza Hat just because that's on the icon there. Are you more bullish or bearish on crypto? Do you think it's a good thing or a horrible thing? It'd be interesting to know your thoughts on that. So they did not talk about crypto at all during the debate. Hey, I wish they would have. Because in the future, in the years to come, I think a lot of people will be talking about crypto. And I've said it a few times on the channel, in that this president that's elected will probably face a financial crisis within the next 4 years for America. And that generally, that's why I think that Republicans will be elected to the House, the Senate, the presidency this cycle. And then there'll be a financial crisis. They'll be blamed for everything. And then you have the pendulum swings and Democrats take the House, the Senate, the presidency. I think that's how it's going to go, but I don't know. With the way things are, maybe we'll never see a Republican president again. Let me know in the comments in the chat section, will we ever have a Republican president again? Because again, hey, yeah, we'll have elections, the next 20, 50, 100 years. China, Russia, North Korea, they have elections too. Even Venezuela has elections. They're just not fair. And it's very ironic how with China, Russia, with our media actually today, who's the threat to free and fair election? It's Trump. He's the threat. No, if you got your eyes open, it's the mainstream media, it's the Democrat Party. Hey, it's probably both. I don't think the Republicans are our savior by any means. And when people go around say, yeah, Trump's gonna save America, make America safe again, or save America or whatever, I'm more pessimistic on that. For sure. But if you want a lot of views, if you want to be more popular, then you have to be tribalistic. You have to be go to bat for the Republicans just over and over and over again. That's what I see, more or less. So unless what they call the globalists or new world orders are removed from government, no such way. Yeah, they've got a lot of things in place. The World Economic Forum, They've got plans, and they've dumbed people down a lot, and their plans will ultimately they'll be thwarted by God. But short term, yeah, they'll succeed. And the next plan will probably be, who knows, but a financial crisis, I think. Oh, crypto equals trading cards and comic books market. That can get into crypto too. Um, but crypto is also a way to have totalitarianism. And China's developing their central bank digital currency. I don't know when they'll unleash that or what the status is on that. And America will probably have one within X amount of years. Who knows if it'll be attached to a universal basic income? Um, but but Donald Trump would never let a central bank digital currency happen. Oh no, he would through a stable coin, and we wouldn't call it CBDC. It'd just be called a stable coin. And you can do the same exact things with the stable coin that you can with central bank digital currency. Oh, but with that, hey, my dog is barking, and I really don't have much else to say. Maybe I should have jotted more notes from the debate. But Donald Trump, when he was talking there, he almost sounded like a crazy person. Even though, is he saying the truth? Probably. I don't know about if cats and dogs and geese and ducks are being eaten and stuff. But if you go around saying no one's, not even your pets are safe, they're running around eating everyone's cats and dogs and stuff, you just sound crazy. Why? Because reality is just so crazy anymore. Um, with one party saying, girls can be men and men can be girls, and it's a good thing for men to go in girls' locker rooms and play in their sports, and nothing sounds sane anymore. Um, and when you call it out, you almost sound like the insane person. Hey, Kamala, Tim Walz is putting tampons in boys' bathrooms. Well, yeah, that's true, and it's outrageous. But if you call them out for it, you almost sound like the crazy ones, because all they just laugh while you're saying it. Um, it's like from physical items that can be handled and exchanged to selling air, frankly. There are RWAs, real world asset tokens, where it sounds like real world assets, real world things, houses, cars, different things will be tokenized in the future. But when you try to understand everything, it gets kind of complicated. And that's linked to BlackRock. It's linked to the World's Economic Forum as well. So, there are pictures and reports of ducks and swans being killed and eaten social media wise. Yeah, and we're living, especially in the age of AI. It's almost as if you don't know what to believe. I mean, you don't know what to believe. And within X amount of years, the majority of content online very well may be AI. You could generate AI is going to do stuff better than what we can do in many instances. And that's the cold, hard truth. Hey, they could drive a car down the street better than safer than what humans can do. That's just the cold, hard truth. They can make images better than what I can do. If I try to draw a picture of Donald Trump, looks horrible, but it can generate one just like that. Eventually, because AI can generate images exceptionally well right now. Eventually it'll be videos, and it'll be blockbuster movies, probably. How many years is that away? I don't know, 5, 10, 2, who knows? Probably more than 2. But it just gets more and more powerful. We got Grok 2 right now, Grok 3 coming out December, January, probably. And that will be leaps and bounds better than Grok 2. The world's becoming a lot more interesting, that's for sure. But if there's one thing that we should know, it's don't trust the mainstream media. Absolutely don't trust the mainstream media. Those AI cars are now creating noise pollution, according to YouTube bibs from home cameras. Yeah. Uh-huh. But with that, folks, thanks for tuning in. I can go do some stuff, but I will see you hit the like button on your way out, and I will see you in the next video.